Number 10. Beating up on the homeless. Ex-NFL star Kellen Winslow had some serious mental problems. He was convicted of sexually assaulting a 58-year-old homeless woman, and also for revealing himself in front of a random 77-year-old woman. He had a grotesque fascination with old ladies, despite the fact that he was married to a woman for 13 years and had 2 kids with her. The NFL star was married to Janelle Winslow, a woman most would agree is insanely beautiful. But even though he had a gorgeous wife at home, he was sexually assaulting homeless women in his spare time and giving unrequested views of his private parts to senior citizens. If you said, "What the heck?" after hearing that, that is absolutely correct. What the heck? Kellen Winslow was the tight end for the Cleveland Browns before he was found guilty in May of 2018 for the incident with the homeless woman. He was also brought up on 2 counts of lewd conduct involving 2 other women. Oh yes, and then there was the incident of indecent exposure, which he was also found guilty of. That's 4 women he violated in total, although he still has 8 remaining charges against him. It seems he was on a spree of lewd conduct, one that helped to ruin his career. If he's brought up on all the other charges, he'll probably be in jail for the rest of his life. He's already in jail, and he can't get out since the judge denied his request for a $1 million bail. Number 9. Threatening the cheater. NFL player Earl Thomas made headlines recently for some strange family drama. According to the police, his wife Nina Thomas discovered that she was being cheated on. Earl was fooling around with another woman on his Snapchat account. She was so mad that she got together with 2 of her friends and went to confront Earl where he was staying at an Airbnb. Once there, Nina stole her husband's pistol and scared him with it. She put the gun to his head and threatened to blow his brains out for being a cheating scumbag. Yikes. He may have been a cheater, but Nina definitely should not have put a gun to his head. She was arrested for burglary and intent to commit aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. However, Nina has denied all the allegations against her. She's gotten herself a lawyer and is now waiting for the day in court when she can clear her name. Suffice to say, the relationship between Earl and his wife is most likely over. Shortly after the incident, the Baltimore Ravens released Earl Thomas. It's in part because of his wife's defense. She has claimed that not only did Earl cheat on her, but he terrorized her repeatedly. He was inappropriate in front of the children. He got angry on Christmas and tried to beat her up in front of her family. And then he sent an adult video of them together to a group text between Nina's parents and their nanny. This kind of behavior just isn't appropriate in this day and age, and it looks like Earl's career might be over because of it. Number 8. Crash and burn. Henry Ruggs III was the wide receiver for the Raiders, but he ruined his own life, a whole bunch of other lives, along with his career, after he got drunk and ran into a woman and her dog. Henry was traveling at a blistering speed of 156 miles per hour. Just before he slammed into the back of a Toyota, he killed a 23-year-old woman in the car, while he himself got away with nothing more than a scratch on his face. He was driving his Corvette in Las Vegas at 3:40 in the morning, wasted out of his mind. His girlfriend was in the passenger seat, left in serious condition after the devastating accident. Henry was brought up on a charge of DUI resulting in substantial bodily harm. But substantial bodily harm is really an understatement. The victim of his reckless driving, Tina Tinter, died from thermal injuries due to the motor vehicle collision. The Clark County coroner said that she basically burned to death. If this had been anybody else, they would have been sent to jail immediately. But the superstar was able to post bail of $150,000 and be put on house arrest. Now he's just lounging around at home like he's grounded, waiting for his court date. He could get up to 20 years in prison for his despicable crime. But then again, he might get nothing at all. Number 7. Revenge on the ex. In December of 2014, the police responded to a domestic dispute at the apartment of linebacker Jermaine Cunningham. Jermaine was then arrested and charged with invasion of privacy. It wasn't that he was beating up his girlfriend, but that she became furious after realizing he had posted inappropriate photographs of her on Instagram, tagging her in them without permission. He posted the most explicit photographs you can imagine of all her body parts for the world to see. This is a serious offense, and he was charged under New Jersey's revenge porn law. He was also charged with criminal mischief for destroying his girlfriend's property, as well as unlawful weapon transport for having a handgun in his glove compartment. That handgun happened to have hollow point bullets in it. According to court documents, Jermaine Cunningham pleaded guilty to the crimes. In June of 2015, he was sentenced to serve 3 years of probation and to undergo anger management counseling. He was suspended by the NFL for 6 weeks, but not outright fired. What kind of role do you think the NFL should play in these types of situations? Let us know your thoughts on this controversial issue in the comments below. And don't forget to hit subscribe before the end of the video. Number 6. The broke life of Warren Sapp. Warren Sapp had a great career. He dominated as one of the top defensive tackles in the NFL. He was a longtime player for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, then went into retirement. It was after his NFL career was already over, voluntarily mind you, that he began running into serious trouble. He became financially crippled, going so broke that he could no longer pay his child support. Finally, in 2012, he had to apply for bankruptcy. One of the big problems Warren had was that he had fathered too many children. During his career as an NFL star, which lasted about 13 years, he made a whopping $60 million. All that money helped him support an extremely large family. He married his first wife in 1998, Jamaica Vaughn. They had 2 children together, but they divorced in 2003, and he went on to father 4 children with 4 different women. That's a total of 6 children with 5 women. As you can probably imagine, that is a whole lot of child support. Despite being a millionaire, Warren lost all his money after he stopped playing football. In 2012, he had $826 in his checking account. Yet, on his bankruptcy paperwork, he had $6.7 million in debt. He still owed his wife $876,000 in alimony, as well as thousands of dollars per month that he was supposed to be paying all the other women who gave birth to all his other children. Warren finally hit rock bottom when he was arrested on suspicion of soliciting a prostitute. At the time, he was working as an analyst for the NFL Network, but they terminated his contract after he got busted. Even though the charges were dismissed in 2015, his life was already in ruins. Number 5. 30 Days for Murder. Dante Stallworth, former wide receiver for the Cleveland Browns, was given 30 days in jail for killing a pedestrian in Florida. The former NFL star was just 28 years old when he committed this terrible crime in June of 2009. He got drunk, then climbed behind the wheel and drove his car through Miami Beach. He was so drunk that he drove his car right over a pedestrian. The pedestrian was 59-year-old Mario Reyes. Mario was running across the street to catch a bus when he was run down by the intoxicated football player. Let me give you an example of just how insane 30 days for this crime is. The average jail sentence for a similar crime in Florida, according to ABC News, is actually 10 years. And yet Dante, just because he's really good at throwing a football, only served 30 days. The authorities say his reduced sentence was due to his cooperation with the police and because the victim's family didn't want to see him locked up for years. Still, Dante didn't get off completely free. He had his driver's license suspended for life. He was ordered to pay a measly $10,000 in fines, and he was ordered to do 1,000 hours of community service. And then, of course, he did need to serve 2 years of house arrest and spend the next 8 years on probation. He also made a deal to donate $225,000 to Mothers Against Drunk Driving. But that was a bit embarrassing because the national president of MADD actually declined his money. Number 4. The Cult of YAHWEH. Robert Rozier played professional football for a few different teams. He was a defensive end drafted by the St. Louis Cardinals, but whose career was derailed after getting hooked on drugs and crime. He briefly played for a Canadian team before signing with the Oakland Raiders and playing with them for a rather brief 2 weeks. 1982 was when things got really weird for Robert. He met the founder of YAHWEH Ben Yahweh and was inducted into their cult, the Nation of Yahweh. This was a religious movement back in the 80s that taught African Americans that they were the true Jewish people. New members donated all their possessions and then were given new Jewish names. But this group had a very violent method of business. To become a full member, an initiate needed to kill a random white person. In April of 1986, Robert followed a drunk white man back to his apartment and then butchered him and his roommate with a Japanese knife. But he didn't stop killing there. He and another member of the Brotherhood killed a drunk man who'd passed out in a bar parking lot and cut off his ears. 2 weeks later, Robert and 3 other members of the cult killed another man by stabbing him 25 times. Robert was eventually apprehended by the police, whom he told some pretty strange things. He said he was 404 years old and couldn't remember any of his life before converting to the Nation of YAHWEH. But eventually, he changed his mind. He remembered a lot, snitching out on the cult in exchange for a reduced sentence of 22 years in prison. This ultimately led to a murder conspiracy indictment being brought up against the cult and their spiritual leader. Number 3. A spree of assaults. Adam Jones, former NFL cornerback, has a long history of violence. He played for the Tennessee Titans, the Dallas Cowboys, and the Cincinnati Bengals. In August of 2006, he was accused by a woman of spitting in her face. That same night, Adam was arrested for disorderly conduct and public intoxication. Then in October, he was issued a citation for spitting in the face of another woman at a nightclub in Nashville. In February of 2007, he got in trouble for grabbing a stripper by the hair and punching her in the face. He also threatened to kill the employees of the strip club, which he may or may not have attempted. Shortly after he was kicked out of the club, somebody shot the place up. A female patron took a bullet to the head. One of the bouncers took one in the chest, and another bouncer had his spinal cord severed. The shooter was identified as Arvin Edwards and given 4 to 10 years in prison. It was never confirmed beyond a doubt that he acted on orders from Adam Jones, despite investigators uncovering that Jones paid him tens of thousands of dollars following the shooting. After all these troubles, he never really had any repercussions. He got 1 year of probation and 200 hours of community service. He also had to pay $12.4 million in damages, but that wasn't a big deal considering he kept getting work. Football teams just kept hiring him, despite the fact that he was clearly a maniac. Finally, in 2021, he was convicted of assault for beating somebody up and given 180 days in jail. Number 2. Dogfighting. Michael Vick was sentenced to spend 23 months in prison for running a dogfighting ring. He's one of the most disgraced NFL stars of all time, and even received a harsher sentence than other people involved in the dogfighting ring. This is because he lied to the judge about his involvement in killing pit bulls. Michael was supposed to accept responsibility for his actions, but U.S. District Judge Henry E. Hudson wasn't convinced. Even though Michael surrendered and made a public apology, the judge didn't feel like he really accepted responsibility for killing pit bulls that didn't perform very well in the dogfights. So he gave him a harsher sentence than everyone else involved, allowing Michael to think about his crimes a little longer while sitting in jail. Michael was directly involved in electrocuting, hanging, drowning, and using other violent means to kill dogs that were no longer useful. Not only that, but Michael also promoted, funded, and facilitated dogfights, one of the most cruel and barbaric sporting events that is somehow still around. As hard as it is to believe, somewhere in a neighborhood near you, there are a bunch of people throwing their dogs into a gladiator pit. It's just that this time, because Michael Vick played football for the Atlanta Falcons, the case became national news. Number 1. Gone broke. Former Texas football star and NFL quarterback Vince Young is completely broke. He's one of the most notorious cases of a rich sports star losing all their money. He earned about $26 million in the NFL, and then went bankrupt because he spent money as if it would never run out. One time, he didn't want to deal with any airport travelers, so he bought an entire Southwest flight, every single seat on the plane. In just 7 years, he went from having $25 million in the bank to being $10 million in debt. He spent over $5,000 a week at the Cheesecake Factory. He bought a bunch of expensive cars. He bought a house for his mom. And then suddenly, he couldn't even buy himself a pair of shoes. Who's your favorite NFL star that lost everything? Let us know in the comments. And thanks for watching. Be sure to hit subscribe and come back soon for another outstanding video. See you then. Bye.